looking and seeing. Is that correct? Yes. So I am talking today about the investigation of the saphenofemoral junction and including a little bit of provocation maneuvers just as an introduction. And then we will investigate two patients together. Of course, this presentation is supported by Varis. I can only thank. And I thank also and again to Mahmoud, to Mohamed Omar El Farouk, which is also a very, very brilliant person. I love to mix you lots of times in different meetings. And I think it's great you are supporting this MOH. Just a short reminder, we have a lot of flow provocation maneuvers. Why do we need them? In veins, we have not regular flow when we are standing. And you know that venous investigation of the legs is in standing position. This we have the classical Valsalva, which was changed to Cremona. And I think this is an interesting thing with the folded straw to blow inside. Then the manual compression of the calf, everybody knows, the toe elevation, and the dependency maneuver, we will come back to that later. So Valsalva, everybody knows, and everybody knows that it is a little bit difficult for people to understand sometimes how it is to be done. And this deep inspiration and not exhaling and pressing simultaneously, but closing the mouth and press without exhaling. And sometimes it is so difficult to explain to the patients and they are not able to perform it. And if you do it in standing position, they have fainting. So that Claude Franceschi and Roberto Del Frate introduced this folded straw thing and called it Cremona maneuver. You blow into a closed straw, and then you finally have a pressure build up in the abdomen, and you will provoke a reflux if there is an incompetent valve below. The most classical and surely the most often applied maneuver is the manual compression and decompression of the calf. When you press, you provoke an anterograde flow, and you don't need the patient to understand what you're doing. And it can be done while you're talking to the patient. And surely afterwards, we will do this the most because I will be talking to you about what I'm doing. And so I can do the compression, but it is not physiologic because it is not a movement of a muscle. If patients have pain in the leg, it is painful, and it is difficult because this is a little bit exaggerated. This was my little daughter and my husband, and if she compresses his calf or he compresses her calf, you can understand and imagine that the flow amount provoked by this disproportion influences the result. This is why it is not so perfect. Coming from the Paraná maneuver, which is pushing the patients, and I thought I can't push the patients in my office, we developed the Wunstorf maneuver or the toe elevation maneuver, which is like you see in the picture, to elevate the toe or to make this and contract the toes. And we will see that in our patients today. And this is a physiologic flow which is repeatable and the patient understands. And especially in fall, we will make the investigation of the perforating veins, especially in the perforating vein investigation. This one is the real life investigation of the walking person. And then sometimes you have a little flow in the vein which is obvious varicose. So you see a varicose vein, and like here, this is the great saphenous vein with manual compression, decompression. You say, this is not really a reflux, but obviously she has. And the funny thing is that in 2006, simultaneously, Chris Latimer from London and me published the same maneuver. We had the same idea, two stupid persons, the same idea, they say in Germany, and we published this. It looks like we will do this also with the patient. You put this patient with this image and you say, I don't believe it, she has more flow. You put her laying down and wait a little bit, like 20 seconds. And then this is the same great saphenous vein. And after emptying the vein with the leg up, it fills and fills and fills. And for me, this is the queen of the provocation maneuvers, because if you have a reflux, in this case, you have a reflux. And if you, after emptying the leg and standing again, have no reflux, the valves are competent. This is like never false negative or positives. This is standing with manual compression, and this is the same vein just after laying down and standing back. So this is the notion we need because we will apply it later on in the investigation. And this is where we will investigate today the terminal and the pre-terminal valve. It is all about these two valves, the terminal, the pre-terminal. Of course, there is the deep vein valve, and there are tributaries, cranial ones and medial ones in the groin, and the lateral one, which is the accessory anterior saphenous vein. And we do the investigation normally standing. We look at the morphology, longitudinally and cross-section. We do color duplex because we see quick where the blood comes from and where it goes to, but PW to document the findings, because in color it is not over the time, and to document the findings, the reflex duration, you need a curve in the time. Maneuvers we have seen. So if there are competent valves, the flow is like this. Upstairs, I always say, but the tributaries go down to join the great saphenous vein in the groin. If we have a reflux in the great saphenous vein, we have to know from where, which vein is originating this reflux. Most of the complicated or more obvious refluxes come from the deep vein with an incompetent terminal and pre-terminal valve, and this is called axial reflux because it comes from the heart down the cava, down the iliac vein into the great saphenous vein. This is like this image, a longitudinal cut of the groin. This is the systole, the deep vein, and the superficial vein draining to the heart. And this is the diastole, when the patient lowers the foot again, or you take away the hand in the manual compression, and you have a reflux from the deep vein, excuse me, from the deep vein into the superficial leg vein. And this means that the terminal valve is incompetent. Again, you measure at the very point of the ostium. This is the deep vein. This is the ostium. This is the superficial, the saphenous vein. And you measure here. This is the systole, anterograde flow, and the diastole. You have a long-lasting retrograde flow. So this is for sure the most often found situation in patients with large refluxes. But we have also another situation in 20 to 25% of patients coming for treatment that the terminal valve is competent, and you have a reflux from the tributary of the groin, for example, the epigastric in this case, and the pre-terminal valve is incompetent and the reflux goes down here. This is a so-called paraosteal reflux because this is the ostium. This is the ostium. The blood comes from the deep vein through the ostium, and here the ostium is competent, the terminal valve is competent, and this is the paraosteal reflux with competent terminal valve. And we see again this longitudinal cut of the leg. Systole, blood goes to the deep vein, and diastole, the blood does not come out here. It has come out from the epigastric vein. And as this is so important, I repeat it here in images: canal femoral vein, tributary, great saphenous vein, systole, anterograde flow, diastole, no flow from the deep vein, no reflux, but from the epigastric. If you differentiate this is very important to plan the treatment, because I'm completely convinced that these cases are those that profit best from endoluminal techniques. And because you leave a competent terminal valve untouched, and you leave the flow from the epigastric vein draining to the deep vein. This is a cross-section of the same leg. You see the reflux comes from the tributary, not from the deep vein. And if you compare both, this is a larger reflux from the deep vein, and this is a small reflux, terminal valve competent, and you have the reflux from the tributary. I think this was my introduction, and now we go on. I have